Hey everyone, in this course we are building a full stack expense tracker app that runs on both iOS and Android with full light and dark mode support using React Native and Expo. The app has 5 screens: authentication, stats, add, expense and profile. For authentication we provide 3 options: Google, GitHub and Apple. After authentication, you land on the stat screen where you can see your total expense, insightful chart and recent transactions. The add screen lets you quickly log a new expense. On the expense screen, you get a breakdown by top categories, category-wise spending and all your transactions. And you also have the option to update or delete any entry. And finally, we have the profile screen powered by Clerk. We are going to use latest and greatest technology to build this app. Clerk for secure authentication, Neon for secure data handling integrated with an ORM called Drizzle, and we will deploy the database as well. For styling, we are going to use Nativewind, code written in TypeScript so that everything will be clean, reliable and production ready. So by the end of this course, you'll have real production ready app that you can proudly showcase on your resume and portfolio. So without further ado, let's dive in. One last announcement: if you want to go even deeper, you can purchase the full course on Udemy, where you'll get source code, bonus video, step-by-step guidance and fast doubt support. The course is regularly updated, and the best part, all future updates are completely free. Link is in the description. Let's dive in. To create our expense tracker app, we are going to use Expo. So what is Expo? Expo is a full stack React Native framework. So if you have ever built application using Next.js, then it is same like this. Next.js is a React framework which is built on top of React, and it provides bunch of cool features which we can use in our Next.js app. Just like this, Expo is a React Native framework with powerful features. If you check the React Native documentation, if you go to the reactnative.dev, and in the React Native section, the React Native documentation recommends the framework like Expo. Expo provides features like file-based routing, high-quality libraries, and the ability to write plugins that modify native code without having managed native files. We can use features provided by the Expo without managing any native files. So React Native itself recommends Expo to build React Native application. And if you go to the Expo documentation, it provides bunch of other features as well, like map, then camera, push notifications, deep links and bunch of other features as well. And it is used by the top companies YC, Pizza Hut, Coinbase and bunch of other apps as well. So we are going to use Expo to build our expense tracker app. To get started, just click read the docs and copy this command to initialize our React Native project. So I will go to the VS Code, open the terminal and I will run this command here. So I have created Spendwise project. Our app name will be Spendwise. So I thought Spendwise, and if you run this command, this will create a template project. Currently, Expo is downloading and extracting some project files. So until this is installing, I will go here in the Nativewind. And if you just search Nativewind install and go to this installation, and for Nativewind we are going to use version 5. So what is Nativewind? So if you have used Tailwind CSS in React application or Next.js application, so like this we have Nativewind in React Native. We can also write CSS using styles tag, but we are going to use Nativewind to style our application because it will become much easier to write Tailwind CSS in React Native. If you have the experience writing Tailwind CSS in Next.js or React project, then this is the very much similar as writing in React or Next.js. Scroll to the bottom and click installation. Then this Nativewind documentation will provide all the steps to follow to install Nativewind in our project. Let's go to VS Code. Yeah, our project is ready. I will clear the terminal. And if you check the folder structure, so this is very much similar to Next.js application. We have the app, folder, assets, components, constants. If you open the app, first we have this special file with underscore prefix layout.tsx. Then we have this modal component and tabs folder. To simplify this, what I am going to do, I will go to this package.json and here we have one script, reset project. If we run this reset project script, it will remove all the boilerplate code. Let's do this. npm run reset project. Now it is asking, do you want to move existing files to app example instead of deleting them? So I will say no. Clear the terminal. Now if you check in the app, now we have only two files, one layout and one index.tsx. So this index.tsx is a home screen. If the file is index named, it will become the home screen. And if you go to this layout.tsx, so here we have this stack which is coming from Expo router. To run our project, I am going to run this command npm run start. So what it will do, it will provide this QR code and it will say scan the QR code above with Expo Go Android or the camera app. Now to check the result of this React Native application, we can go to the web and our app is running on the localhost 8081 port. But we are not building for web, we are building for mobile. So it is not good to check the result or to work with web. So what we can do, we can install this Expo Go app. So if you go to Chrome and search Expo Go, I will type here Expo Go. If you go to this Expo Go, so Expo Go is a learning environment and sandbox for getting started. So this is the app provided by the Expo for both iOS and Android. Simply you can install this app from your phone, and if you have iOS, then just open the camera app and scan this QR code, and then it will automatically opens this application in Expo Go app and you will see this text. And same for Android. But what we are going to do, we are not going to use Expo Go app to check the result or to work with. What I am going to do, I am going to use the iOS simulator. We can also check the result in our simulator as well. So why simulator, not Expo Go? So Expo Go is great for learning environment if you are building some simple application. So it is great for learning environment, but we are building a production ready app. It is also possible that you can build production level app in Expo Go as well, but we are going to have the real environment in which we will find all the errors or bugs in the build before it go live. Expo Go is great for learning, but to build the application for real user, we want the production build. So we are going to use simulator for this app. To install simulator environment, we have to download Xcode. So just go to App Store, search Xcode here and install Xcode. After you have installed the Xcode, open the Xcode application. By default, I have created one sample app here. You can create a new project, select app, give the product name and organization identifier. You can give your name here as well. I'm not going to create the app because I already have one. I will open the sample app and just go to this sample app directory, and here you have to select the team. For this you need to have an Apple account. Just click on this team and select add an account. And if you don't have the Apple account here, add the Apple account from here, and then add the Apple account, and your Apple account will be visible here. After you have signed in your Apple account, then your Apple account will be visible here. So just select the Apple account for the team. After you have selected your team, go to this sample app, my Mac, and here if you check, we have these iOS simulators. So we have iPad, iPad Air, iPhone 17, 17e, iPhone Air. So we can use any of the simulator to run our project. If you are not seeing simulator here, so you will have the option to download the simulator. So just download the simulator and then you will be able to see all of these simulators. After we have downloaded the simulators, close this Xcode application. Then what I will do, I will kill this terminal or stop the server and write this command npx expo run iOS. So what this will do, it will create a iOS build. If you check here, it have created this iOS build and it will install all the necessary dependencies like the package.json, Cocoa pods, and bunch of other stuffs which we don't care. It will take some time. It depends on your internet connection. So after 2-3 minutes, it will open our application in this simulator. Our application is running successfully in iPhone 17 Pro. Edit app or index.tsx to edit this screen. So this text is coming from here. If I modify here, let's say, we'll say hello world. Then the changes reflected instantly in the simulator. Now we have the nice workflow. Here we can make all the changes and all the changes will be visible instantly in our simulator. So we don't have to back and forth in web or on phone. We'll close this terminal, and next thing we are going to do is we are going to install this Nativewind. So what is Nativewind? It's a style your React Native apps using Tailwind CSS. This is the utility first workflow you love from Tailwind CSS in your React Native applications. So we can use Tailwind CSS in our React Native application, which will design our UI in both in iOS and in Android. As React Native says, if you go to the React Native documentation, reactnative.dev, it says learn once, write everywhere. So we are going to learn this React Native and our code will work on both iOS and Android. And check the example here, like text for Excel, text center, just how we write Tailwind CSS. Also it provides some more utility as well if you want specific styling for iOS or Android. It supports both dark mode, light mode, CSS variables, animations, and here you can check who is using Nativewind. All of these apps uses Nativewind to design their application. Let's go to the Nativewind documentation for installation. Here installation with Expo. So we will install all the packages using Expo. Copy this command. It will install Nativewind and its peer dependency like Tailwind CSS, React Native and other stuff. So let's go to the VS Code, open terminal. I will open a new terminal and I will run this command. Let's check the next step. Next we have to set up the Tailwind CSS. We'll copy this command and we'll run this command here to install Tailwind CSS and the post CSS. Then we have to add Tailwind CSS to our post CSS configuration. To do this, we need to create this post css.config.mjs file in our root of your Expo project. So let's go to the VS Code and here in the root, I will create this file, copy this file content and simply paste it here. And let's check the next step. We need to create this global CSS. Let's create this in the root and copy this content and paste it here. After this, we need to create this metro.config.js file Again, I will create this file in root, copy this content and paste in this metro file. Then we need to import this CSS file. I will go to this layout. So this is our root and simply import @global CSS. Then we need to install this lighting CSS version. So copy this, go to package.json. After this dev dependencies, or let's say above dev dependencies, here just paste this overrides lighting CSS. And then we have made some changes in package.json, so we need to install this library. So what I will do, I will delete this node modules, or let it be. So I thought I will delete this node modules and install all the libraries again. So let's go with this. I will delete this node modules and again I will do npm I, so that it will install all the dependencies and lighting CSS. After this, let's check what is the next step. So the last step we have is this TypeScript. So it is saying optional, but no, we have to do this as well. So copy this file name, go to your root folder, create this file, copy this reference because we are going to use TypeScript to create our project. Save this file. Now we have to try it out. So let's go. I will close all of these files and I will remove this style, and let's try to add some styles to this text. So I will say background color to red. So I've saved this file, but we don't see the background color to this hello world. Let's try giving text color. Let's say text color to red 500. Yeah, it is not working. What we can do, I will kill this terminal, stop the server, and I will delete this Expo app, this Expo folder, delete this Expo folder, and I will delete this iOS module as well. And then I'm going to delete this node modules as well. And then I will say npm install. First I will install all the dependencies. After this, we will run our application again, because in our iOS modules, I think the Nativewind is not integrated. Let's run npx expo run iOS. So again, it will create this iOS module, Cocoa pods, all the package.json dependencies, and so on. Let's wait for some time to install all of these dependencies. Until then, what we can do, if you go here in our design, so this is the design of our application. So as you know, our app will support both dark mode and light mode. So this is the design for dark mode, and this is the design for light mode. Our first screen will be this login screen. We are going to design all of this UI using Nativewind. For login, we are going to use Clerk. So if you go to the Clerk, go to Clerk dashboard. If you have not signed in, go to clerk.com or simply search Clerk and sign in, and you will redirect to this application, this dashboard. Here we will create a new application. I will remove this email and just check the Apple and GitHub, and our app name will be Spendwise, and create the application by clicking this button. Then select this Expo. Then we need to follow all of these steps to install Clerk in our application. But for now, what I am going to do, I will just copy this env variable, and here we will create the env file, and I will paste the env variable. But I am not going to do now because I will wait until this process is completed. So we will come back to this later. And also for database, we are going to use this Neon, fast Postgres database for teams and agents. Just click get started and sign in with your preferred method. So I'm going to sign in with Google. So here already I have two projects, Spendwise Test and Expo project. So this project I have created to test our application which I have created. So I'm going to create a new project. Let's name it Spendwise, and I will not modify any of this input. I will set the region as AWS US East and create. Then click this connect button and copy this connection string. Let's see if it is completed. No, it is not completed yet. So we'll wait for some time until our build is created successfully. Then we will create our env file and we will paste the Clerk env variable and the Neon database. Now it is installing our app on iPhone 17 Pro. Let's wait for some seconds. Our application is opened on iPhone 17 Pro and you can check it already have this Tailwind CSS. And you can verify this by checking this background color. So if I remove this background color, save the file, so the text color is red. It means now our Tailwind CSS is applying to our application. So let's create the env file and paste this Postgres URL. So I'm going to name it database URL. Let's go to Clerk, copy this env and paste it here. So we are going to use this database URL for our DB connections, Expo URL or Clerk publishable key for our authentication. So now we have successfully set up the Nativewind in our React Native application. Now I am going to end this section here, but before ending, let's recap what we have done in this section. In this section, we have set up the Tailwind CSS. If I go to the Tailwind CSS documentation, sorry, not Tailwind CSS, Nativewind. First, we have used the Expo to create our project using this command. Then we have set up Nativewind version 5 by following the Nativewind documentation. If you have any difficulties while setting this Nativewind, make sure to ask below. Then we have created a Clerk project and we have used this publishable key. Then we have created a Neon database. So if you go here in the tables, in the upcoming section, we are going to define a table. Currently there is no schema, so we are going to define the table, and also we refer this React Native documentation, and we have also have this Expo Go app in which you can run your application without need to install Xcode or simulator. So I hope you have learned so much new things in this section, and before ending this, the last thing I have to do is I will go to github.com and here I will create a new repository. So what we are going to do, we are going to push our code after every section ends. So I will name the repository name as Spendwise, and for now I will make it as private and create repository. Now let's go to the VS Code, and here we have all the changes. If you are not seeing any of these changes in your code editor, then it means you have not initialized the Git. So just type this command in your terminal, git init, so that Git will be initialized in your project. So what I am going to do here, just we need to copy all of this command. So create a new repository in the command line, but we have already created. So we are going to push existing repository from the command line. Open terminal, new terminal, and first we need to set this remote origin. I will paste the command here to set the origin, and then I will add all these changes in this staging. Let's use AI to write the commit message. Yes, so this is the commit message. And one thing I'm going to do, I will go to git ignore, I will say .env, so that I don't want to push my .env file on the GitHub. I don't want to make it public on the GitHub. I will add in .env so that Git will not push this file on GitHub. Now let's add this changes in staging, and here we have this nice commit message, commit and publish branch. Let's wait. Yeah, it is done. Let's go to this repository and refresh the page. Okay, we have pushed all of our code. So after each section, we are going to push every code which we have written so that we will have the track of our work. So make sure to do this. Okay, so that's it for this section. I will see you in the next section. In this section or in this lecture, we are going to create authentication. We are going to first build the authentication screen, and we are going to give the user to sign in with Google, Apple and GitHub. So let's check the UI for this. So this is the UI for the authentication screen. We have this nice looking title, description, this wallet image, and then we are giving 3 authentication options. User can sign in with Google, GitHub and Apple. So this is the dark mode design, and here we have this light mode design. In light mode, this screen is going to look like this. So let's start with the dark mode. So I will go to the Clerk. So we are going to follow this documentation to install Clerk in our project. First, this is saying create a Next.js app. Sorry, it is not Next.js. Make sure to select Expo. So it is saying run the following commands to create a new Expo app. We have already created the Expo app, so we will skip this step. We are going to skip this step as well. And then copy this command to install SDK Clerk Expo. Let's go to VS Code and run this command here. Let's check the next step. So already we have copied this env variables and we have created our environment variable for Clerk. Now the next thing we have to do is copy all of this code. So we have to put this code in our root layout. So let's go to the root layout. So our root layout is this one. This layout is our root layout. So I'm going to paste all of this code here. We have also installed our dependency. So here what this code is doing, it is just getting the publishable key which we have stored in our environment variable, and it is checking if the publishable key is not present. We will say add your Clerk publishable key to the .env file, and then here is the Clerk provider and it is using slot. So I'm going to replace this with stack, as we are using stack instead of slot. Save this file. We are getting this error, cannot find native module Expo secure store. So I will come back to this later. We'll fix it later. Let's check the next step. So we have done with this step. Now it is saying, they are saying protect your route or auth routes in the layout. So we have to create this auth in our app. In the app, create a new folder and call it as auth with round bracket. So what is this round bracket? So if you create any route or any folder with the round bracket, it will not consider as the page or screen. It will not become a routes. Then we have to create layout.tsx. Let's create layout.tsx file inside auth. And I am going to simply copy all of this code and move it here. Here the Clerk is using use auth hook. If it is not loaded, return null. If it's signed in, then it is redirecting to the home page. And our home page is this one, index.tsx. Else it is returning this stack. Now let's check the next step. Now in the auth, we have to create our sign up or sign in screen. So let's go here. Let's create new file and I will call it as sign in. Let's create the sign in screen here. Return one view from React Native, and inside this view I will take one text. I will say sign in screen. Let's export this screen. Default sign in screen. Okay, now we are getting here error cannot find native module. So what I am going to do, again I will delete. Let's first close all of these files. I will say close all, and I'm going to delete this iOS directory, node modules and expo. Then I will say npm install so that node modules will be installed, and I will run the command to build this iOS. So let's remove this node modules, expo iOS, and first let's install the dependency npm install. After we have installed all our dependencies, and make sure you are in the spend-wise directory which you have created here, then I will say npx expo run iOS. It will take some time to create the iOS build, and it will automatically opens our app in this simulator. So let's wait for some time until it is completed. Now our application is running successfully in the simulator. So this hello world is coming from here. This index.tsx is our home screen. So what I will do, I will remove this text color. I will remove this class name as well. Yes. And I will give background color to this view. Let's give red 300. So we have to create the authentication screen. So let's go back to the design, and here we have this authentication screen. User can sign in with Google, GitHub and Apple. So let's build this authentication screen. So already I have created this auth directory, and we have this sign in screen and this layout file. And also I'm going to do one thing is I will add the options, screen options, and I will hide the header to false so that it will hide the header. Now you can see the header is no more here. If I set it to true, so here we have this header, and if I set it to false, then it will be hide. Now don't worry about this hello world is going in the bezel. We are going to use safe area so that it will come below of this view. We'll close this layout, and here also I will hide the header shown to false. Then first let's create the safe area view component. So what I am going to do, I am going to create a new folder, components, and I will create a new component, safe area view.tsx. Let's use this shortcut to create the safe area view component. And if you are wondering how we can use this shortcut, so I have the extension, this one, ES17 React Redux React Native Snippet. You can download this extension and enable it so that you can use these snippets. What I am going to do, I will remove all of this code, and I will say export default styled, and I will pass safe area view from React Native safe area context, and this styled will come styled from Nativewind. So what I am doing here is we have created this safe area view component, because if we directly use this safe area view, then I tested the Tailwind CSS, Nativewind is not applying to safe area view component. So what I am doing, I am wrapping this safe area view to the styled which is provided by the Nativewind, so that we can use this safe area view component and we can add Nativewind to this component. I hope you have understood this. And then if you see, if I wrap this view inside safe area view, which will come from components folder, and if I wrap it here, yeah, now you can see the hello world is in this safe area view. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete this index.tsx file. I will remove this file. Now let's create our sign-in screen. Before creating our sign-in screen, I will go to global.css, and here I will paste all of these colors. In our application, we are going to use all of these colors. So make sure to download this global.css file from the resources below. I will close this file, and here in sign in screen, I am going to give some background color to the safe area view. This background color. As we are building our screens, I am going to add dark mode support as well, because it will become very difficult if we write only code for light mode and then we have to write the code for dark mode. So it will become painful. So what we can do, as we are writing the code for light mode, we will also add the code for dark mode as well, because it's just a color. We can add that. It's not much complicated. What I will do, in dark mode, I will say the background color to cinder. And to verify this, you can see the color becomes cinder because the simulator is in dark mode. To switch to light mode, go to settings, scroll below. Here we have this developer and off this dark appearance switch. Now if we go to our application, we have this magnolia color. Then I will give all the space, flex 1, it will take all the space. I'm going to add some padding to this view, px6, and padding top to 12. And then the text will be spend wise. Let's add some CSS. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy paste this CSS here. Yeah, so here we have this class name, text center, text size to 5XL, font is extra bold, tracking tight, text color and some uppercase, and we have font mono. Below this text, I will take one more text. I will say sign in to access your curated financial dashboard. And let's give some class to this text as well. Margin top 1, text center, text size will be 14 pixel, and the color will be ebony, and in dark we will give this text gray suit. Yeah, so we have this description here about our application. Then we want one image below this text. So again I will take one view, or what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy paste. So here we have this view. Let's import this image from React Native. Yeah, so here we have this view, and inside this view we are using this image element from React Native, and we have to pass the source here. So in the assets, currently we don't have this wallet image. I'm going to add all the assets which we are going to use in this application. So make sure to access these assets from the resources below. Okay, here we have these assets. Inside assets we have images, and here we have this wallet image which is coming here. We'll close this file explorer. Yeah, the image is looking good. Then we want welcome back text and description. So I will add the code here. Here we have this view, and this view have some classes. In dark mode we are setting this background color. In light mode we have this white background color, some border radius and padding, and we have margin top to 20. Then inside this view we have this another view. This contains this welcome back text. This text, we just have this simple classes, background color, some colors, uppercase, font size, font weight, and then we have this text which we have given some margin top, text center, text size and some colors. So what I will do, I will switch to dark mode. Let's switch to dark mode to check this how it is looking in dark mode. Yeah, I think it is looking good. Now after this text, I will take one view and I will give margin top to this view as 6, which is 24 pixel. And inside this view, we are going to use one component which is pressable, which is similar to button in React or Next.js. I will use this pressable from React Native, and to this pressable we can add class names, disable state, and we can also add this on press. So if user press this button, this handler will be called. So before using this pressable, I am going to create some states. First state I am going to create is loading, set loading. Initially the loading will be false. Then we have to create one hook for authentication. So we have three options for authentication. So we are not going to repeat the code. I will create one hook. So to create the hook, I'm going to create one folder, hooks, and I will create one file inside this hooks, use social auth.ts. Let's create the hook, use social auth, and let's export this as well. Export default use social auth. So this hook will take some parameters or prop. Inside this hook, I'm going to create one state which is loading strategy. Set loading strategy equals to use state, and the type will be string or null. So initially the value will be null like this. Then we are going to use one more hook which will come from the clerk. It's called use SSO, and it will return us start SSO flow. So we will call this flow for every strategy, means for every option which we are providing for authentication. Then I'm going to create one method, handle social auth, and this method will take one parameter which is strategy, and the type will be OAuth Google or OAuth GitHub or OAuth Apple. So these are all the strategy we are providing for authentication. And I will say if strategy is loading, then we will simply return. So what it means, it will guard against concurrent flows. So if one flow is loading, means if user pressed the continue with Google button, then we are not going to run concurrent flow simultaneously. We will simply return, and we will say set loading strategy to strategy. Then I will take one try catch block. Let's handle the error first. So if there is some error while login, I will say console.log error in social auth and the error message. And also we are going to show the alert to user. So this alert is coming from React Native dot alert error failed to sign in, please try again, like this. Then inside try block, I will call start SSO flow. We are using await here, so we need to convert this function to asynchronous. Then this start SSO flow will return session ID, created session ID, and the active, set active, and this will take the strategy. We will simply check if session ID is not created or it is not active. If set active is undefined or null, so it means it failed to sign in. So I will say alert sign in incomplete, and in description I will say sign in did not complete, please try again, and we will return. If we got the session ID, it means user have successfully signed in. So I will say await set active, and I will set the session to the created session ID. So this is our handle social auth, and just we need to return this handle social auth from this hook. We'll say return handle social auth and the loading strategy. Now we are going to use this use social auth for all our authentication option. So inside this sign in screen, I will call use social auth, and this will return handle social auth and the loading strategy. We will call this method for every strategy. And below here in the pressable, I'm going to copy the pressable code here. I will remove this pressable and I will replace this with this one. Here we have this loading strategy. So using this strategy, we can know which strategy is clicked. So I will say const is Google clicked. I will say equals to loading strategy. If loading strategy is equals to OAuth. So we need to create this OAuth. So what I will do, I will create one folder, utils. Inside this folder, I will create constants.ts and I will paste all of this code. So here we have this OAuth. So we have providing Google, GitHub, Apple sign in, and here we have some category key and we are mapping this category to icon and some utility. So don't worry about this one, as we are not going to use all of these methods here. As we build the next screen, this all will be required. So don't worry about this for now. We close this constants file and here again I will say OAuth.google. Then same we have to do for GitHub and Apple. I will copy this, paste 2 times. Just I will replace this Google with GitHub, OAuth.github. Same for Apple and here as well. Yes. Now inside the pressable, we want to create this pressable button. Inside this pressable, I will take the closing tag, pressable. Inside this pressable, I will write continue with Google. So here we have this continue with Google. Then I will wrap this text inside a view and let's add some class to this view. I will set the width as 8, height 8, item center, justify center, rounded will be full and background color to white. And then I will take the Google image. So I will use this image element from React Native. We need to pass the source, require, and we will go to the assets, images and google.png. So here we have this Google image which is not looking good. We need to set the width and height. I will use this style and I will say width 20 and height 20. Yeah, here we have this Google image. And for now I will remove this text and I will take the text after this view. We'll take one text and I will say if Google is clicked, then we will say connecting Google and we have these dots, else we will say continue with Google. Let's give some class to this text as well. I will give some margin left, flex, text LG, font semi bold, and in dark I will give the text color to white. So I have added some class to this pressable and here we have this continue with Google. If you look here, I have used this font awesome icon which is coming from Expo vector icons, and on press we are calling this handle social auth. And now the same thing we have to do for all 2 pressable, for GitHub and Apple. So what I am going to do, I am going to copy the code for pressable which is very much similar to this pressable. After this pressable we have this pressable and I will name it as loading instead of is loading, and we will use this font awesome icon from vector icons. And if I save, you can see we have this continue with GitHub. All the designs is similar. If GitHub is clicked, we are saying connecting GitHub, else continue with GitHub. And when we are calling the social auth, we are passing the GitHub OAuth. Now the same thing will go for Apple as well. And don't worry, like this is just a simple CSS. Some margin bottom, height, flex row, item center, we have given some border radius, border, and if it is active then we are setting the opacity to 90 and if it is loading, we are setting the opacity to 70. And for this icon, we have the background color white, width, height, and some flex, item center, and border radius. I will copy the pressable for Apple as well. After this pressable, I will use this pressable, and let's remove this is loading to loading. And here we have this continue with Apple button. So the only difference is for these two buttons we are not given the background color, but for this button we have given the background color to white. And the only change is when this button is pressed, we are passing OAuth Apple, and for GitHub this will be a GitHub and similar Google, and everything remains the same, just we are using the different icon for each authentication. And if the Apple is clicked, we are saying connecting Apple, else continue with Apple. And below this view, I will take one text. In this text, I will say by continuing, and let's add some class to this text. I will give margin top, text center, text size to SM, leading 5, and in dark I will say text white divided by 50. And in light mode the text color will be gray 500. By continuing, you agree to our terms and privacy policy. So here we have some space left, so let's fix this. To fix this, we want to adjust the edges of the safe area view. So in the safe area view, I will say edges, and I will pass edges as top, so that all the content will be in safe area view from the top, not from the bottom. Here we are not using this set loading. So instead of this, what we can do, I will add this line. We will check is loading. So it will check if it is Google clicked or GitHub clicked or Apple clicked, means user have clicked any of the authentication strategy. I will say if it is loading, then we will add all of these states. I will replace this loading with is loading. If you want, you can also have separate loading state for each authentication. So we have successfully created our authentication screen. So before testing the authentication, what I will do, in the app, I will create a new directory called tabs. So if you check the design, we have tabs for stats, adding the expense, and profile. Then in the tabs, I will create index.tsx component, and I will use this shortcut, and let's name it as home screen. Any file name you give index becomes the home screen by default. Then in these tabs, we are going to create this special file layout.tsx. We'll name it tab layout, or let's use the shortcut tab layout. And here we will check if, or let's copy the layout function here. So I will copy this and paste it here, and all of this is coming from this use auth. So let's copy paste it here, import, and here we will check if user is not signed in, then we will redirect the user. I think we have not imported this, so let's import redirect from Expo router, and I will say /auth/signin, and you can see we are getting this error unmatched route, because here we have made one mistake. While creating this tabs folder, we have not added this round bracket. So let's add this, refresh the simulator by pressing R. So again we are getting this error. Let's check. Here we have this authentication layout.tsx. So here we have this href error. I will come back to this later. Now the error is gone. This was just a silly error. Just try to rebuild the application again. So stop the terminal or kill the terminal and run the command to build the iOS directory again. To build the iOS, you can just use this command npx expo run iOS, and just run this command and the error will automatically be resolved. Then let's move forward. So now what I'm going to do, if you check the documentation, Clerk, so here it is saying waiting for users. So we have not created any users yet. So as soon as we create the users will reside here. So let's test our authentication. So I am going to sign in with the Google. Let's click continue with Google. And yeah, we got the error failed to sign in, please try again. Let's check what is happening. After we got the alert is coming from here, error failed to sign in, please try again. But it is still in loading state. So let's first fix this one. So in the finally block, I will say set loading strategy to null. We don't care if sign in is successful or we got the error. In any of the case, we will set the loading strategy to null. Now let's check. So if I click continue with Google and the authentication failed, so it is not in the loading state. Now let's try to debug this. I will click continue with Google. So it is saying error failed to sign in, please try again. So this alert is coming from here. So let's check what is happening here. So first what I will do, I will print this strategy. Let's see if we are getting this strategy or not. And I will say continue with Google. Yeah, we are getting the strategy and also we are getting this error. So we have logged the error here. It is saying error in social auth. Error Expo auth session and Expo web browser are required for SSO. Install them. Yeah, we missed this part. We need to install Expo auth session and Expo web browser. So let's quickly install this. We'll copy the Expo auth session and Expo web browser. After installing this, I hope this will work. Let's check. Yeah, it is installed. Now what I will do, I will refresh. Yeah, and continue with Google. Yeah, it is connecting to Google. So again we got this error, cannot find native module Expo crypto. The build error which we were getting, so we forget to install this Clerk Expo package, Expo auth session, and this is an optional package, Expo dev client. This package helps us to use the same build and not to rebuild the Expo again and again, the iOS build. And we have installed this Expo secure store package, and here I have downgraded the React Native CSS from 7 to 6. So this is optional. If you are getting some error, then you can do this, else just ignore this. Then this is the override lighting CSS which is moved here. So make sure to install all of these packages, and if you ever get stuck, I am going to provide this package.json in the resources below. So just copy this package.json, paste it in your code, delete the node modules, these node modules, and just run npm install and everything will work smoothly. Now let's test our sign in with Google. Continue with Google. I will press continue with Google. Yeah, now it is asking us Spendwise wants to use accounts.google.com to sign in. So let's press continue. I will select this account. Continue. And yeah, it redirects me to the home page. So if you go to the home page, which is index.tsx, here in the tabs, and if I wrap this inside a safe area view, let's wrap this inside a safe area view. You go to layout.tsx, sorry, not this one, this one. So here we are checking if it is not signed in, we are redirecting to the sign in screen, but the user is signed in. So instead of returning this view, I will return a stack expo router and save this file. So here we have this home screen coming from the home screen page from here, and what I'm going to do, I will say options, screen options, header shown to false. And if you go to the Clerk, so here you can see Clerk is saying congratulations, your application has users. And if you scroll below, this is the user which currently signed in. So we have successfully implemented authentication in our application. Now the next thing we are going to do is we are going to set up the tabs. So if you check the design, here we have tabs for stats, add, expense and profile. So we are going to set up all of these tabs and we are going to use the React Native tabs. So it's actually a native tabs. Let's go back to VS Code and here in the tabs in layout.tsx, I'm going to write all of the tab code here. We will remove this stack and instead of stack we are going to use tabs. So first let's import the native tabs from Expo router / unstable native tabs, and with native tabs we are going to need icon. For each tab we will have icon and label. Now I will remove this stack and I will say native. Let's copy this native tabs and inside this native tabs I will say native tabs dot trigger and here I will use the label. The first tab is stats and each tab will have the icon as well, and we can give the icon using this sf. Default will be chart.bar, and if it is selected then just we are going to give this icon fill, and here we will say if user is not signed in then redirect the user to auth sign in. So here we have done one mistake. By mistaken we have written this tab code inside the auth layout, but it should be there inside this layout. So what I will do, I will comment this, and this code was the original code for this layout, and let's use this code here and I will paste it here, and let's uncomment this. And if you check, now here we have this stats tab. So my bad. Like this we will create the tabs for add, expense and profile. So before creating it, what I will do, we need to create the screen as well. So let's create the profile screen, RNFE profile screen. Then there will be a, let's check, expense and add. Expense.tsx RNFE expense screen, and then the add screen, add.tsx add screen. I will copy this trigger and paste it 2 more times. Here there will be a add screen, expense, and we need one more for profile. Here the add screen A is uppercase, which is incorrect. Let's make it small. Yeah, now we have this add. Now let's rename all of this. Here the add will come expense and profile. The label is changed. Let's change the icon as well. For add I will use plus dot circle. Copy this, just replace this. Here we have the add icon. For expense we will use the credit card image, credit card, and here we'll say credit card dot fill. So if it is selected then we will have the fill image, else outline image. For profile we will use the person image, person, and person dot fill. Yeah, here we have this profile. Now the only thing we need to do is change the tab tint color. So by default iOS gives this blue color, so we are going to change this here. So in dark mode we will have the different tint color, and in light mode we will have the different tint color. To check if it is dark mode or light mode, we can use the color scheme. So I will say color scheme equals to use color scheme from React Native, and I will say is dark. So if the color scheme is dark means the application is in dark mode, else in light mode. So I will say tab tint tab tint color is dark, then use this color, else this one. So let's define the color. I will use this color here, and for light mode we will have this one, 584DE0. Just give this tint color here, tab tint color. Now the default color is changed to our color. So don't worry if it is not looking good, because in dark mode the background color will be different, not this white one. And if you go to any of the tab, so we have this add screen, expense screen and profile screen. So currently we don't have safe area view for any of the screen. So let's fix this. So I will go to the app, tabs, and here, and I will wrap this inside a safe area view. Let's do the same thing for expense screen as well. Safe area view. Same thing goes for profile screen. Safe area view. Here we have this profile screen, expense screen, add screen and home screen, which is a stat screen. So it is looking good and working as expected. So I will end this lecture here. Before ending this, let's push all of our code to the GitHub. I will add all the changes. Let's use AI to write the commit message. And I hope you have understood this section. In this section, we have set up the authentication and tabs. So here we have this nice beautiful commit message, and let's commit this. The changes are committed to our repo. I will end this section here and I will meet you in the next section. In this section, we are going to set up our database and we are going to write some DB actions. So let's go to the Neon database. Here in the Neon database, we have created our Spendwise project. This is our project name, and directly go to this tables. Currently it is empty. Neon DB does not have any data or any table. So we need to create table here. So we are not going to create the table manually. We will write a script and schema to create the table, and we will store all the user expense in this table. We are going to define columns and rows for this, and we are not going to interact with the DB directly. We are going to use the Drizzle ORM. So if you check the Drizzle ORM is a next-gen TypeScript ORM which is supported with TypeScript as well. So if you go to the Drizzle here, this is the ORM for you to ship, and it's supported in JavaScript and TypeScript. And if you click this get started and select this Neon, and if you want, you can read this documentation. And yes, we need to install this serverless Neon DB, and you can read this documentation to how to connect to DB, how to create tables. But I'm going to show you exactly the same thing, how we can achieve this. So let's go to our VS Code. Here first I'm going to create a new folder called lib, short for library. And inside this lib, I will create another folder, server, and inside this server, I will create another folder called db, and inside db, I will create client.ts, and I am going to create one more folder which is schema.ts, and then inside server, I am going to create one more file which will be dbactions.ts. Here we will create schema, and here we will write our DB connections. So before writing anything, we need to install Neon. Let's open new terminal, npm install. I will paste this Neon database serverless, and we also need the Drizzle ORM, and install these two packages. If you check the documentation, here it is using this Drizzle ORM and the Neon database serverless to create the connection. And we also need this Drizzle kit. So let's install this Drizzle kit as well. This will go under the dev dependency. So Let's install this Drizzle kit as well. So I will clear this npm install -d and paste this Drizzle kit and click enter. So it will install the Drizzle kit in the dev dependency. We'll clear all of this, close the terminal, and let's write our DB connection first. To connect to the DB, first we need the database URL. So if you check the env file, here we have this database URL. So I will say const database URL equals to process.env.database URL. Then I will define the schema for now as empty object, and here I will check if database URL is not present, then throw new error, and I will say database URL is required for API routes. If the database URL is present, then I will say const SQL equals to neon. So let's import neon from neon database serverless, and I will pass database URL. And let's export this DB using Drizzle. Let's import this Drizzle as well. Drizzle from Drizzle kit, sorry, not Drizzle kit, it is Drizzle ORM / neon HTTP. And I will wrap the client, not wrap, I will provide the client and the schema. So nothing fancy we are doing here, just we are getting the database URL and passing this database URL in the neon. Then we are using the Drizzle as a ORM and we are passing the client and schema. So this will get the DB. So we can use the DB for our DB actions. Now we need to define the schema for our database. First, let's import all the things which will be required for creating the table. So as a neon is a Postgres database, so I will import the PG table text big int from Drizzle ORM / PG core. It is not init, it is int. Export const, let's name it as expense transaction PG table, and here I will pass the same name expense transaction. You can provide any table name as you want. So for now I am giving this expense transaction. You can also add here like spend wise transaction or your app name, but for now I will name it as expense transaction. And now we have to define the columns. The first column will be ID type text, and this ID will be a primary key. Then for each transaction there will be a title and it will be not null. Like this, there will be a category, sorry, not category key, category type will be text category dot not null. And for the remaining field I am going to copy paste the columns. So after category we have this amount. So for every expense transaction obviously there will be amount, and we are passing the mode as number and it should not be null. Then we have the expense date for every transaction and this created at date. Now let's go to DB actions to define all our actions. So I will remove this comment, and here first action I am going to define is the get all expenses. This will be a async method, and here I will say const rows equals to await DB. DB will come from the client, and I will say dot select. So select means we are fetching something and we have to define the table, means schema from which table you want to fetch. So I will pass the table expense transaction which we have created in our schema, and then I will sort this by order by in descending order. You can use this descending from Drizzle ORM and just pass the expense transaction dot created at. So this created at column already we have defined in our schema, and after this simply return these rows. So this is a simple action, get all expenses, which goes to the DB, searches the expense transaction table, order this by created at, and then returns all the rows. So like this, we will have the create expense, update expense, and delete expense. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy and paste all of these actions, and I will explain each action here. So like this get all expenses, we have this create expense item. So what it does, so it takes the input. In the input, see, for every expense we have to create, we want title, category, amount, and expense date, as all of this is defined in this schema and it can't be null. So we are destructuring all of this input, and we are saying db.insert, and we are passing the table, the expense transaction, and then for values we are defining the id using crypto.randomuid, then the title, category, amount, expense date, and for the created at we are saying date.now. Then here we are saying dot returning. It means it will return the created expense. We will return the rows of 0. Then similar, we have this update expense item. Now to update the expense, we need the ID so that we can search the row in our table, and then the input to be updated. So just here we are using the update instead of select or insert, and then we are setting all of this data, and here we are checking if the expense transaction ID is equal to this ID, then set all of this data and then return. Then like this, we have this simple delete expense item. It just go to the tables and checks if the expense ID is equal to this ID, then it will delete that row. If you want more clarity, so if you check the design here, for each expense that we need to add, we need the amount, the title, category, and date. So if you check the update, not update, create expense item, we are getting this title, category, amount, and expense date, and we are pushing all of these values in our DB. Update expense item comes, we need the ID to update the expense and all of this data. And delete expense item is easy. If user clicks, so this is our expense page, not page, screen. If user clicks the delete, then we will pass the ID for this expense, and in the database this row will be deleted. So I hope you have understood all of these actions. So I'm going to end this section here. So in this section we have written our schema, client for the DB connection, and the DB actions. And don't worry about this schema, we are not going to use the empty schema here. We will pass our created schema, but all of this we are going to do in our next lecture. So let's push all of this code. Let's use AI to write the commit message, and I will say commit and sync changes. So I'm going to end this section here, and I will meet you in the next section. So we have pushed all of our code, but before ending this section we have missed one thing. This is the schema, which is a empty object. So I will remove this and I will import star as schema from schema. So we are going to use this schema. And then the last thing we are going to do is we are going to write a script so that we will have some data in our database. So currently our table is empty. So let's create this table. So what I will do, close all of these files, and here I will create a new folder, scripts. Inside this script I will create one file, c.expense.mjs, and I will paste all of this script. So this is a simple script which we will use to add some data in our table. So here we have this database URL. We can also use the process.env, but I tried it. It was giving some error that database URL not found. So I will write the database URL like this, and before pushing we will replace this with the env. Then just we are using this neon to create the SQL, and here we have this expense items. Each item will have title, category, amount, and expense rate like this. And then here we have this seed function which creates a table in our expense transaction. So if you go to the schema, here we have this expense transaction like this, and we are creating all of this column, and then we are iterating through the expense items, and one by one we are inserting all of these values. So to run this script, I will go to package.json, and here we will define a script, and it is not MJS, it is CJS, which is common JavaScript module. And then inside package.json, I will say seed expense. Let's add the comma here. And what does this script will do? It will use the node and it will go to the scripts folder. Let's open the Explorer. Here we have the scripts, and it will execute this file .cjs. And before inserting this data, we need to push the table or create the table. So for that, I'm going to define one more script. Let's name it as db push. And as you know, we have installed the Drizzle kit. So I will say Drizzle kit push. Now let's test all of this script. I will open a new terminal. And if you check, if I refresh, there is nothing here. So first we have to run this db push. I will say npm run db push. So it is saying no config path provided using default drizzle.config.json. So we forgot to create this Drizzle config file. So we need to create a Drizzle config file. I will create a new file here, drizzle.config.ts, and I will paste this code. So this is a simple file. Here we are defining the config, because if you run this script db push, which is Drizzle kit push, it will find this file Drizzle config, and here we are routing the Drizzle to our schema route. We have defined the schema in our library, server, then db and schema.ts. Then the out will be ./drizzle, dialect is PostgreSQL, and the credentials is database URL, which is defined in our env. Now let's open the terminal, clear it, npm run db push. Let's run this command. Yeah, it is pulling the schema from database and changes are applied. Let's refresh here. And you can see here we have this expense transaction table with all of these columns: ID, title, category, amount, expense date, and created at. But currently it says no rows. So let's push some data as well. Already we have written this script. So if you go to package.json, we need to run this script. So I will say npm run seed expense. Let's wait for some time. Yeah, it says seed complete, inserted 10. So now if you refresh the table, so here we have all of this data from this seed. Here we have this lunch at cafe, Uber ride, category. So here you can see the title, category, amount, expense date, and created at. So I have dumped all of this data so that while we are building our screens, we will use all of this data. So we have written a simple script to push the schema and the data in our database. So I hope you have understood this, and I'm going to push all of this code to our repo, commit, sync changes. So I'm going to end this lecture here, and I will meet you in the next lecture. In this lecture, we are going to write our API endpoints. To write our API endpoints, we are not going to create a different repo or different service. We are going to write the API endpoints in this project itself, because React Native provides the way to write API endpoints. So if you have ever built a project in Next.js, so in Next.js you can create an API folder inside app and you can define the routes. So like this, Expo framework also provides this similar functionality. In the app folder, I will create a new folder called API, and in this API I will create two files. The first one will be in this square bracket ID, then we need to add this plus API suffix .ts. So why we are adding this plus API? So this is the convention we need to follow to create the API route so that Expo will know this is a API route. Click enter, and the next API we are going to create is index plus API.ts. So why I have written here index, you can also write here anything like get expense or fetch expense, you can write anything. But if you write index, then you don't need to add the suffix. So what does it mean? When I will integrate this API, I will explain you. First let's create this. So the first API we are going to write is in this file. So what is this ID? The API endpoint will become like this: https:// let's say api.frontendlab.io/ and here we have to pass the ID. So this can be a dynamic ID, this can be anything, and we can access these params here. Now I will write the API so you will get better understanding. So if you check the DB actions, so we have update, delete, create and fetch. So what do you think? Which one we should call here in our ID? So if you check the DB actions, this get all expenses does not take any input. This create expense item takes this input to feed this data. But if you check the update expense item and delete expense item, these both have this ID field common. So we are going to call this update and delete here, and we can get this ID using these params. I will create one function, export async function. This will be a patch function to update the expense item. Here we will get the request of type request, and this is the syntax for getting the ID params. This will be a type string and like this. Inside this function, I will take one try catch block. First let's handle the catch. I will say const message, or let's say error message is equals to, we will check if the error type is instance of error, it means error will have this message property, else we will define the custom message and we will say failed to update the expense item, and we will return the response dot JSON error and message. Error message. So here we are just checking if the error type is error, it means it will have this message property. So the error message becomes this, else this custom message. And then we are returning the response with the error and error message. Now in the try block, to update the expense item, we need all the data. So if you check the design here, we need title, amount, category and date. So I will say const body equals to await request dot JSON, and from body we will get all of this data. So I will destructure title, category, amount and expense date. I will say updated expense item equals to await update expense item. So this update expense item is coming from our DB actions, and we need to pass the ID and all of this data. So let's pass it one by one, and expense date. Then we will check if it failed to update the expense item, we will return the response dot JSON. We will pass a custom error message and we will say item not found and the status, and we will also pass the status code as 404. Else if the expense is updated successfully, we will return the response.json and we will return this updated expense item. So I hope you have understood this patch method. Like this we will have the delete. So for delete I am going to copy paste the delete method here, and I will explain every line. So delete is going to be simple. Let's import this delete expense item, and here we have this request and the ID which is coming from here, and we are just calling this delete expense item from our DB actions, and we are returning the response with the OK, true and status 204. And if it failed, then we are just this similar message we are returning. So this is our patch and delete method for our expense. So I hope you have understood this both method. Now let's go to this file index plus API, and here we are going to write the get and post. So the get will fetch all the expenses. So if you check in the design, here we have all of this expense, the recent transaction. Then I will remove this diagram, and if you check here, these are all of the expense which we are going to fetch. So let's write our fetch method. So the fetch method is going to be simple, so I'm going to copy paste the fetch method. So this is the fetch method which calls get all expenses from our DB actions, and just it returns the response.json, and if it fails to do so, we are returning the message. Now the next method is our post. So if you check the design here in the add, where it is, yeah, here. So here we are saying add, and if you click this add expense, all of this amount, title, category, date will be added in the expense. So to insert all of this data, we will call the post method. So I'm going to copy paste the post method, which is going to be pretty straightforward. So here we have this post method. Let's import this create expense item from DB actions. So this is simply a post method which have this request. So from the body, we are destructuring all the data, which is title, category, amount, expense date. And here I will add one more equals to, and we are checking if title, category or amount or expense date is undefined or it is not present. We will return the response saying please provide all required fields, because this should not be null. Then we are calling our create expense item, and we are passing all of this input data, and if we created the expense successfully, then we will return the created expense and the status. Else we have this catch block which returns the error message. If you want, you can also add one more check here. If created expense is undefined, then you can return the response from here as well, as we done in our update expense item. But for now I will go with this code. Okay, we have this get and post request which we are going to integrate in our front end. Here when we create all these screens UI, we will call all of this API. So I'm going to end this section here. I hope you have understood this API, how we can create the API endpoints in React Native. Before ending this lecture, I am going to push all of this code to GitHub. Let's use AI, and here we have this nice commit message, and commit and sync changes. So our code is pushed to GitHub, and I will meet you in the next lecture. In this lecture, we are going to set up our store. So as we are following all the best practices and we are making sure our code is scalable and structured, so for this we are going to use store. So what I am going to do, I will create a new folder called store, and in this folder, in this store, I will create one hook, use expense store.ts, and I will create one more file, use expense store.types.d.ts. So in this store we will have all the states and methods, and in this types file we will have all the types which we are going to use here. So store is nothing but bunch of different states and methods, and we can use this store directly in anywhere our app. We can use this store in sign in page or in any of this screen like add, expense, profile. By setting up store, we will have one central storage where all our data lies, and anyone can read that data. So we don't have to create bunch of states or do props drilling. So for store, there is a famous library called Zustand. So if you search Zustand, go to Zustand npm. It says a small, fast and scalable state management solution using simplified flux principles. To install this library, just you copy this command and open one new terminal and run this command to install Zustand. If you check the weekly downloads for this Zustand library, you can see it is already a very famous library. Let's go back to VS Code and let's check. Yes, the package is installed. And if you check the documentation, you have to just use this create from Zustand and set up the store. So this beers is a state, and this increase population, setting the state.beers +1, and using this remove all beers, we set the beers to 0. So it is pretty straightforward and easy to implement and use. But we are not going to use in this simple way. We will create types for our store. For the types for our store, I have all of these types which we are going to use in our store. So if you check, we have created this expense category type. So this all the category we support in our application. Then we have this expense item. Each expense will have ID, title, category, amount, expense date. We are exporting the response, which will be a array of expense. Then this is the type for the input. And here if you check, this is the expense store type. So in this store, we will create this user expense state and all of these methods to fetch the expense, to add, update and delete. Then here we have some type for month data and this generic map. So don't worry about this, and we will implement this strat screens, then it will come into picture. So don't worry about this for now, and you can also leave this. Let's go to the store. So I will say export const use expense store, and we have to use create. So what I will do, I will copy this import statement, add it here. Let's use this, and we will set this create type as I expense store. Here we will get the setter and getter, and it will be an object. So if you check, we are getting this error because we have added this store type. If I remove this type, then you can see the error is gone. For now, I will remove the type. And if you are thinking what is this set and get, so this is simply used to set the store variables, and this is get used to get the state variables or any functions. The first state I am going to create is the user expense. Initially, the value will be empty array. So here what I am doing, I am creating this user expense state. You can think like this. I am creating this user expense state and the initial value will be empty array. Then I will create one method fetch expenses. This will be a async method. We'll take one try catch block. I will console the error console.log failed to fetch expenses and the error. And in the try block, we simply need to call the API. So I will say fetch /API/expense, and then I will say const data equals to await response.json, and I will say parsed data equals to, so here I am going to parse the data. So what does it mean? So if you check the API route, I am saying /API/expense. So /API means we will go into this directory /API, and I am then saying /expense. But if you check, there is no expense folder inside the API. So we forgot to create this. So I will create a new folder expense, and I will move our API to this expense directory. Move. Yeah. Now what we are saying here, /API means /API/expense, and then we have not added anything after this expense. So what Expo will do, it will get this file. If you add index to the API routes, then we don't have to need to add the index. It will automatically fetch this one. Then for parsing the data, so we are returning the data in snake case, but in front end we are going to follow the camel case convention. We are not going to use snake case. So what I will do, I will create a new folder, utils, not inside the store. In the root level, I will create one folder, utils. Okay, so already utils exist. Then let's go to utils and I will create a new file, app.helpers.ts. Or let's do one thing, I will move this helper inside the library. Yes, inside the library, let's put this helper file, and here I will paste this code. Let's import this iCamel case. Yeah, let's import this map as well. And I will export this function. So this is a simple function which converts the keys to camel case, and already we have declared this camel case type and the generic map type in our store type file. You don't need to worry about this. You can just write one prompt in the AI tools and you will get this convert key to camel case function. Here I will say convert keys to camel case and I will pass the data, and I will say data dot expenses. So if you check index API, so we are returning the expenses. Here we have this expense, so it should match with this expense. And then I will say set, I will copy this user expenses and parsed data. So we are fetching the user expense and then we are setting the expense to this user expense, and we can use this user expense in any of the screen. Now let's add the type iExpense store, and as soon as I add the type, you can see we are getting this error because we need to add expense, update expense and delete expense. So what I will do, after this fetch expense, we'll say add expense, then we'll have the delete expense and the update expense. You can see the error is gone. We are getting this error because of the parameter, and all of this method will be a async. So let's add this async. To add the expense, we will need the input data and the type will be iExpense input, which is coming from our store. And again I will take try catch block. Let's handle the error first. So I will copy this console log and I will paste it here, and I will say failed to add expense. I will print the error, and in the try block I am going to copy paste the code. Here is the code for try block. So we are simply getting all the input by destructuring it. Then we are calling await fetch API / expense, just like the fetch expense, but the method will be post. To add the expense in our database, we have written the post API. So we need to define the method for this API, which is going to be a post, the headers, and in the body we are passing all of this data. Then we are getting the response, converting it to JSON. Then we are setting the state. So I'm using this set, and then here in this state we will have all the state which we have declared. Currently we have declared only one state, which is user expenses. So I am saying the data which we have got created expense, first put this data in the user expense array, and after this I am spreading all the expenses. The latest expense will come first, followed by the others expense. Now let's complete the update expense. Similarly, to update the expense, we need ID and the input. As you know, in the database we need ID to find that expense to update, and the data. So again we are destructuring the data, calling the API, and this time the method will be patch, because if you check, let's go to the plus API, which is this one, and if you check the update expense, so this is the patch. So we are defining the method as patch headers, and in the body we are passing all of this data. Then after updating the expense, we are setting the state. So here what we are doing, we are saying set the user expense state. So we are mapping through the user expense state, and we are checking if the item.id is equals to this id, then we are going to pass all of this updated expense item, else the item expense. So what does it mean? It will replace the matched id with the updated expense. So let me explain you through the design. So let's go to our design, and here let's say I want to update this expense. So I will click this edit button. It will go to this screen. It will pre-filled the data, and as soon as I click the update expense, currently it is add expense, but we are going to change this to update expense if users comes from the edit. And if I click the update expense, then we are mapping through all of this expense, and we are checking if user clicked expense matches with the id, then we are not going to return this item, we are going to return the updated expense which we are getting from the API. So I hope you have understood this. And now the delete expense is going to be a straightforward. To delete the expense, again we have taken the try catch block, handling the error here by printing, and to delete the expense we need id, and just we are calling the API by passing the id, and the method will be delete. So this is how it will work. It will go to the API/expense, and then we are passing the id, and we are retrieving this id from here. So if you see, this is the id, and we are getting this id from these params, and we are calling our db actions. And I'm going to close all of these files, and here in the app, let's go to tabs and index.tsx. So this is the home screen. So to try this out, what I'm going to do, first we have to call the fetch expense. So let's go to layout, and here I will take one use effect from React, and I will call fetch expense. We have to move this use effect to here. Yes. Now to use the store, I am going to call use expense store, and this returns a objects, and I will say fetch expense, and let's call this fetch expense here, and we have to pass this in the dependency as well. Now as soon as the app loads, this is the first file which gets called, and this layout file will call this fetch expense. Then inside index.tsx, let's use user expense. So first I will import the hook use expense store user expense, and let's print this user expense, because in the database already we have 10 data. So let's see if it is printing or not. So I will open the console, and yes, you can already see here the user expenses we are getting. The amount is 80, category food, created at expense date. This all data is coming from our expense. Here this the title, lunch at cafe. All of this data we have inserted through the script. So our store is working perfectly fine. Awesome. And if you check the DB, here we have all of this data which we are fetching. So I hope you have understood how we have set up our Zustand store, and we are using this store to fetch the expenses and all the other related actions. Now the last thing I am going to do before ending this lecture is, let's push all of this code to GitHub. I will add these changes. Let's use AI to write commit message. Implement expense management API and state management with Zustand. Let's commit this, and let's push this code to our GitHub repo. Now I am going to end this lecture here, and I will meet you in the next lecture. Now we are ready to create our screen UI. So the first screen we are going to create is this stat screen. So if you check, this screen first have this card which shows the total expense the user have added and the current month expense have spent. Then it has this nice looking allocation bar chart which shows, I will remove this, yes, yeah, then I will select the square bracket, and here then we have this nice looking bar chart which shows the monthly expense. For this we are going to use the bar chart library. Then we have this recent transaction card. The recent transaction will show the top 5 transaction or the latest 5 transaction the user have made. By clicking this view all button here, the user, this one view all button, the user will redirect to this page, the expense page, where the user can check all the transactions. So for now we are not going to focus on this screen, we are going to focus on this stats screen. So let's build this screen. Already we have set up our tab, so I will go to app, tabs, and I will go to index.tsx which shows the home screen. So let's modify this component. I will remove this console, yeah. Inside the safe area view, we will take one scroll view, because if you check the design, after this to card, we need the scroll effect so that user can scroll to check the recent transaction card. So before that, I will set some class to this safe area view. We'll say flex1, and in dark, I will say bg cinder, and in light, we will add this color. And I will remove this text. I will remove this view as well, and I will take this scroll view from React Native, and let's add some class to this scroll view. Inside this scroll view, I will say content container style, and we will give padding to 16 pixel. So this scroll view will take padding from all of the corners, top, bottom, left and right. I will take one view. Let's import this. Press Ctrl space and import, and then inside this view I will take one text, and the text will say expense, and let's import this text as well. Yeah, I think it's not imported. Let's try to import again. Yeah, I will add some class to this view. In dark I will add this shark color. In light I will say Persian blue, rounded XL, and from left right I will add 6 padding, and from top bottom I will add 8 padding, and I will give the gap 1 and some shadow XL. Yeah, so you can see this card is taking the shape. Now I will add some class to this expense title. In dark I will give text gray suit, and in light it will be white. Text size will be SM, font weight medium. Now below this expense text we need to show this total expense. So what I am going to do, I will copy and paste the view for this total expense, and then I will explain what it does. So this is the text for total expense, and I am going to import this method which is coming from our helper file. So what we are doing here, I have created one text from React Native. Just we are giving the colors in dark and light mode, font weight and the text size, and I am passing this user expense which we are getting from our store. And if you check this method get total expense, in app.helper file we have this get total expense. So what it does, it takes the data, it iterates through the data, and it adds all the amount to the total expense and returns the total expense. So what you can do, you can simply check the resources below and you can download this file app.helpers and simply drag this file under the library folder. So as we use more methods of the helpers, I will explain each method, so don't worry about this. Then I will close this file, and after this expense we need to show the monthly expense. I'm going to copy paste the code for monthly expense. After this text we have this code. Let's import. Yeah, so what we are doing here, we are simply creating one view. In dark we are giving this color, in light we are saying royal blue, padding 4, border radius, some gap, margin top, border color to Athens gray, and shadow. And as I previously told, you have to use this file global.css, which will be available in the resources below, and drag and drop this file under the root directory. And we are going to use all of these colors in our project. So the current expense, we have this text, we have added. In dark we are giving this color, in light we are setting the white, font bold, and text size to 3XL. So let's check out this method, get current month expense. So what it does, it simply takes the data in the parameter. Again it loops through the data.forEach expense, and for each expense, as you know, we have the expense date. So while user is adding the expense, it has to provide the date. So we are getting that date and we are converting it to the JavaScript date object, so that using this date we can get the month. So I'm saying date.toLocal string, and then I'm passing the format en-in. So if you are in US, it will be US. If you are in India, it will be IN, and so on. And the month name should be short. And I am checking if this month name matches with the current month name. So what is the current month name? So to get the current month, means the ongoing current month, just use the JavaScript date to local string default and month short. So if user have added the expense for the current month, then this current month will match with this month. Then if it matches, we are saying current month expense to expense.amount, and then we are returning the current month expense. And here you can see, I think we have one bug. Here I am saying if the month matches with the current month name, we are assigning the current month expense to the expense.amount. But let's say user have added 5 expense for this current month. So every time it replaces the current month expense. So instead of equals, we will add this plus sign as well. So what it will do, it will check if the month is equals to current month. Let's say user have added 5 expense for this month, then we will add all the amount to our current month expense, and we will return this current month expense. Yes, I think it is looking good. I hope you have understood this get current month expense. I will close this file, and after this we have to create this allocation card. For this allocation chart, we are going to use bar chart library in React Native. For bar chart, search React Native gifted charts and go to this package. We have to install this package. So I will copy this command, and you can see this package is also famous. You can check the weekly downloads, and this is how it looks. We are going to customize this bar chart. Let's go to terminal, open new terminal, and install this React Native gifted charts. Let's wait for some time until it is completed. Yeah, the package is installed. I will clear the terminal and let's close the terminal. After this view, I will create one view, and here we are going to use the bar chart component from React Native, which we have installed. So what I'm going to do, I will cut this and I will paste our bar chart, and let's import the bar chart. Let's import this bar chart here, bar chart from React Native gifted charts. The C will be capital. Yeah, it's looking good. So what we are doing here, we are creating one view. Don't worry about the error now. First let's explain what this view is doing. So first we have added some class, margin top, some background color in light and dark mode. Similarly we have the border radius, padding, gap, some shadow, and we have this text which say allocation. Similar to this text, the color, font weight, everything, just we have given the padding bottom to 8, and then we have this bar chart. So before I will explain you this bar chart, we need the chart data. For chart data, I am going to create one state, chart data set chart data. This will be a use state, and I am going to define the type as well for the chart data because bar chart requires the type. So the type will be object which will have the label of type string and the value of type number, and this will be an array of object. So this chart data simply contains array of object with the label and value. So what does it mean? If you check the design here for the bar chart, we have the label. So this will be a label. So label means the month name, and then these all are the value. So for each month we will have some value. So this will be a value in y-axis, and in x-axis we will have the label. This object represents that. I hope you have understood this. Then I will take one use effect from React, and here I will say month data equals to get month wise chart data, and I will pass this user expense, and then I will say set chart data to month data. Let's update the dependency. Yeah, in this simulator we are getting this gradient package not found. So it is saying install the React Native linear gradient or Expo linear gradient. So let's install this package. I will say npm install React Native linear gradient and the Expo linear gradient. Let's install both of these package. Let's see if we are able to solve this error. So what I will do, I will stop the server and I will say npx expo run iOS. I will rebuild the iOS module, and let's wait for some time until it is completed. Like it will take, depends upon the internet connection, like it will take 1 to 2 minutes. So let's wait for some time. Our application installed on iPhone 17 Pro. Our build is successful, and you can see here we have this allocation bar chart, and you can scroll this chart as well to see all the expense which we have added for every month. So it is looking really good. Great job. Now I will close this terminal, and if you check the bar chart component which is coming from React Native gifted charts, and it requires some props. So first we are passing this data from chart data, and this chart data is coming from this month data. If you go to get month wise chart data which is coming from our helper file, so what it does, this is a simple utility method which creates this monthly map. Then again we iterate through the data, and again we convert the expense date to the date object so that we can get the month, and then we format the month label to date.toLocalString, the format and the month, so that the user enter date and our month label should match. Then we are checking if in our map we don't have the month index, then we say monthly map of month index, and we assign label, value and month index. So what is this month index? So this month index is the date.getMonth. So what it means, suppose if the month is February, then the month index will be 2. If it is March, then it will be 3. If it is April, it will be 4. So suppose we have added the month, these two in our map. So here, this, suppose if the same month comes again, the same month index comes again, we'll check if monthly map contains this month index. No, it doesn't contains. So what we will do, we will add the month index dot value, which is this value, plus equals to the amount. And let's say 2 does not exist in our map. So we check if it does not exist, then we assign this object to that month index. So the object will become like this. It will have the month index and the value, which is label, value and the month index, and this will be a array of object. And if like this, we will have the month index for 3, then we will have for 4, let me write it 3 4, and if any of the month index repeats, will increment the value, means plus equals the value to the amount, so that for every month we will have the all the amount I've added for that month. Then we are sorting the chart data because we want to show like this: February, March, April, May, June in the ascending order. So to sort, we are taking all the values from the month map, and this is the month data type. Each month will have the label, value and month index. Then we sort by subtracting the month index. So this month index, that's why we have created it will help us to sort it, and then we map through the data and we pass the label and value. So if you remember, to create the chart we need label and value. We need to provide the array of label and value to the chart, and we return this chart data, and we are setting this chart data here. And the different props is the bar width. You can reduce or increase the bar width, spacing. You can have given some rounded top, which you see here, the rounded top. This is some default props, don't worry about this. Number of sections, and I'm saying the max value should be math.max. I'm getting all the value and I'm adding 500, so that the max value will have always greater than the total value which we have in the data. Then there is some additional props for thickness, front color, label color and y-axis color. So I hope you have understood this allocation chart, and now let's move forward to create our transaction card. This one, recent transaction card. So for this I am going to create one component, the expense card, or let's see what we are going to call this, and we are going to create one component and we will map through the transaction or the user expense, and will show the top 5 transaction or the latest 5 transaction. So let's go back to VS Code. After this view, I will create one more view. First, let's add some class to this view. Margin top 8, border radius to Excel. We'll give background color white, and in dark mode, again we will give the background color shark. Similar padding on y-axis and x-axis, and some gap. Inside this view, so if you scroll, as we have added this scroll view, this is our view. Then inside this view, I will create one more view, and inside this view I will take one text saying recent transaction. Recent transaction is here. It is not looking good because we have not added any color. First, let's add some class to this view. Flex will be row, justify between, and items in center. In React Native, the view have default flex and flex column, but in web it is not like that. We have to give the display flex, then we can use any of the flex property. The recent transaction class, in dark I will say text gray suit, and in light we'll use this shark color, and text Excel font medium. If you check here, we have this recent transaction text, and after this text I will take one pressable from React Native, and inside this I will take one text view all. Now I will copy the code for this pressable. So this pressable is going to look something like this, and we need to use this router. So let's import router from use router from Expo router. And if you click this button view all, it takes us to the expense page. Now we want the transaction card. So after this view, I will take one more view, and first I will give the gap to 10. So there will be a spacing between each card, and here I will say user expense dot map. So we will get each expense here, and I will return one text, and I will show the expense dot title, and we need to add the key as well, so I will use the ID as the key. And now if you check, we have all the expense here. So let's give some background color, sorry, not background color, text color to white. Yeah, now it is clearly visible. So this all expense we have added in our database, like snacks, mobile recharge, petrol, movie tickets, coffee, and so on. So we are mapping through the expense and we are showing all the title for the added expense. But we don't want this. We want the latest I transaction. So we can use the JavaScript slice method, and we can pick 0 to 5, means 0 to 4, and it will show the latest 5 transaction. Now for each transaction we want the image, title, date, the amount. So we need to create the component for our stats screen. So what I will do, I will create one folder saying stats screen, and will create all the related components in this stats screen folder, and I will call it expense card.tsx. Let's use the shortcut to create the component. Yeah, and now let's call this expense card here. Expense card, let's import this, and we need to pass the key, so it will be expense.id. Let's modify this expense card component. So I'm going to copy the expense card component here, and I will explain what does this component do. So this is just a simple, we have to show the title, date, and some colors, just the UI part. So this is our expense card component. So before I will explain, let's go to index.tsx, and we need to pass the expense props, expense to this expense. Now if I save it, you can see here we have this expense card. For each expense we are showing the category icon, expense title, expense date, category, and the amount. So here I have created one view, and I have just given some flex class. Here for this view I have again given some flex, item center, sorry, start, gap 4, and inside this view I have this image from React Native, and I have used this map category to icon. So for each expense we are getting the expense from the props. I have created this map category to icon. So or the simple object for category key, and if any of the category comes here, let's say food, transport, or categories, we return the respective icon. So this is the flat icon I have used here. If you want, you can also use different image. For now I have used these flat icons, and in the URI we pass the URI. Then we have simply this text which is showing the title and some simple CSS. Then for date we have used this utility get full date. Again, this is a simple straightforward utility which creates the date from the date object by using the timestamp, and we are then formatting this date. First we are getting the date, then we say .pad start, and we get the month plus 1 because it starts from 0, and then we return the formatted date. So if you use this utility, your date will be look like this. If you want, you can also change here. If you want to show dash or slash, anything, you can access these constants from the resources below. Just simply download the file and drag and drop this file under the utils. Then after the date, here we have the category text. We have given some color. In light mode we are using this gunpowder color, in dark mode we are using this gray suit, and finally we are showing the amount. We have given the text size to 16 pixel, font weight semi bold, and in dark we have given this Melrose color. So I hope you have understood this expense card component. And now if you want to check this in light mode, so let's check how it is looking in light mode. So I will off this dark appearance, and here we have the application in light mode. So I think, yeah, it is looking good. We have this royal blue color. For chart we have the different color. For transactions, we have this color. If I click view all, it redirects to the expense page. So we have successfully created our stats screen, which is looking like this. If we check the design in light mode, we have this card allocation and the recent transaction, which is looking similar to this, and in dark mode it is looking very much similar to this one. So for this lecture, let's keep it to stat screen. In the next lecture we will move to next screen. So before ending this lecture, what I will do, let's close all of these files and let's push all the code to GitHub. I will write the commit message using AI. Let's commit and sync changes. So we have pushed all our code to our GitHub repo, and I will meet you in the next lecture. In this lecture, we are going to build the ad screen. So let's check the design for the ad screen. So I will go to our design, and here this is the ad screen. So if you check, first we have to create this enter amount input, this one. Then we have this title input for the expense tracker title, and then we have this category select. So here we can use view or pressable, anything, and we will provide all of this category like food, transport, grocery, entertainment, bills. For icon, as you know, already we have the map which maps the category to icon, and then we have this date input field where user will have to add the date in this format, and finally we have this add expense button with the linear background. So as you know, already we have installed the linear gradient package, so here we are going to use that. So let's build this ad screen both in dark mode, and if you want you can check this is the design for light mode. So let's start building this ad screen. Let's go to ad screen, and here we have this safe area view and this view. I will wrap this view inside scroll view, because suppose if the application is not opened in iPhone 17 Pro, let's say the screen size is SC, then we need the scroll view so that user can scroll. I will wrap this view inside scroll view, and let's add some class to this safe area view. So as always, I will add the flex one background color to cinder in dark mode, and in light mode I will say magnolia color. Yeah. And then inside scroll view again we'll give the padding, not this one, content container style, and let's give padding to 16 pixel. And for now I will add the text color white. This view will have item center, justify center, and margin top to 5, and we'll replace this with enter amount, and let's give some class to this text. So in dark we'll give text gray suit, text gray 500. In light mode font semi bold, let's write it again, yeah, semi bold, and text size will be SM. So here we have this enter amount. After this we want the dollar symbol and the input. So if you check, here is the dollar symbol and the amount input. So let's create this. After this text I will create one view, and I will give some class to this view first. Let's make this as flex row, item center, margin top 4, gap 8, and I will set the width to 95%. Inside this view again I will take the text. So the text is going to look like this, just a dollar symbol. I set the text size to 3 rem, font bold. In dark mode the text color will be white, and in light mode it is royal blue. And then I will take one input from React Native. It is not input, it is text input from React Native. First let's give some class to this input. I will say text to 3.75 rem, and I will copy the class. So this is the class. Text size is 3.75 rem. We have given the width to 85%, font bold, text black, and in dark mode we are setting the text to this color, Melrose. This text input will have some props. First, the value. So if I set the value, let's say this random number, so here we have this value, but this will be dynamic. User will enter the value, and I will say the keyboard type to be numeric, so that user will not able to type any alphanumeric or alphabets, because we are not storing the strings, we are storing it in number. Or if we are storing in string as well, but we are not going to allow the user to add string here, because amount can't be a string. To allow the user to add the value here, what we can do, see, I can type any value here, but it is not working because we have hard coded the value. So for this, I am going to create one state, amount, set amount, use state, and initially it will be an empty string. I will replace this value with the amount, and there is a different prop called onChange text. So if you remember onChange from Next.js or React, it is similar to that. I will say set amount. Now I can type the amount here. Yeah, it is working good. I can also remove this. Yeah, so it is using this set amount state to set the text in the value. Now similarly, if you check the design, every input have its title, like title, then input, then here we have the category, and icon and date. So I'm going to copy the code for title. After this view, we have this code for title. Now similar to amount, let's create the state for title, set title and the title. And if I save, here we have the title, and now we can add the title for our expense. So this is similar to the text which I have used here, and this is the text input. Just we have some class, height, then some padding, text size, font weight. In dark we are giving this background color, but in light mode we are giving this Titan white, some border radius, text color, and in dark we are giving the text color to Melrose. Then we have the value as title and onChange text as set title. Now the next thing we have to render is the category. So after this view, I will take one more view. I will give the gap 2 and margin top as 8. And in this view, first we want the category text. So I will simply copy this text, paste it here, and remove this title with category. Here we have the category. Now we have to render all the category. So for this, already we have created the category key. So if you check the constants, we have this category key. So we can wrap this category key in object.values, and we can loop through the category to render each category. After this text, I will take one view, and here I will say object.values, and will pass the category key dot map. Will have the category here, and I will return a view. For now, let's return a text, and will display the category. And as we are mapping through the keys, we need to pass the key as category. Now if you check, here we have the category. If this category is not visible to you, what I will do, I will add the class as text white. Text white, my bad. Yeah, here we have the category. Now just we have to add some CSS to look this category like this one. So I'm going to copy the code for the category UI. So before writing the category, again we have to create one state for category as well. We will store the user selected category in this state category. Initially this will be an empty string, and then I will replace this view with this view. and it is saying selected category. So let's name it as selected category. Selected category, and here it will come as set selected category. Yeah. So here if I save this file, so this is how our category is looking, and if I press, you can see it is changing the background color. So for this, what we are doing, as we discussed, we are mapping through the values of the category key, and for each category we are returning this text. Now first we have given the key as the category, and here is the design part. Just we have given the text color black. In dark we are using this text color, font medium, border radius and padding in y-axis and x-axis. Then here we are conditionally adding the CSS or Nativewind. If the selected category is equals to category, means if user selected categories matches with this category, then we are seeing the background color to royal blue, text color changes to white, and in dark mode we are changing it to white as well. So what I will do, I will remove this, because in both light and dark it is white, so it doesn't make sense to repeat the code. But if the category is not selected, we are setting this background color as shark. In light mode we are setting the background color as titan white. So what I will do, let's verify this in light mode as well. Yeah, it is looking good in light mode. Cool. Now what I will do, I will on this dark appearance, and we are going to build the application in dark mode. Now after this category, we want to render the icon. So already we have created the mapping for this. So what I am going to do, again I will copy this view. So after this view, not this view, this view. So after this view, I will paste this view, and let's copy this text, replace this with icon, and now we have to render the image for each icon. So here we have the image for each icon. So this is going to be similar to like this one, as we are adding the conditionally, we are adding the class. If user selected the entertainment, we are changing the border color, just like we are changing the background color. And instead of showing the text, we have the mapping. We will pass the category and automatically we'll get the URI. After this text, we have this code. Let's import the image from React Native, and let's import this map. Already we have discussed this map. If you want, I can tell you one more time. So this map have the category key. If category comes as food, will return the food icon. If comes transport, will return the transport icon. If it comes groceries, will return the groceries icon, and so on. So what we are doing here, again we are mapping through the category key, and we are returning view for each category. In this view, first let's check this image. We are using this map to get the URI for each category, and we have set the width and height to 26 for each icon. And the class name, again we are using the shark3. In dark we are giving this background color, this one, and in light mode we are seeing divide by 10, padding 2, border radius LG. If selected category is equals to this category, then in light mode we are giving the royal blue divide by 70, else simply royal blue. Else if it is not selected, then don't give any border color. So if you check, if I select this transport, it automatically changes the border color here. Now we have to create the date input. So again I will copy the code. First let's create the date state, just like previous one. Date, not data. Use state. Initially it will be empty string, and then after this view I will add the date code. So this is a simple text, just like the previous one, and then again we are using the similar text input with the similar styles and value. We are passing the date. On change text we are passing our set date. So we can write the date here like 2026 5, let's say 12, anything. So user now will able to add the date. After this date, we need to create this button, add expense. Let's go back to VS Code. So after this view, I will paste this pressable. So we are going to use the pressable, which is similar to button. In React Native, let's import the pressable and linear gradient. Not this one. Let's write this linear gradient. So here we have this linear gradient coming from Expo linear gradient. And let's define this method here, handle add expense. Const handle add expense, which will be a async method, and let it be empty for now. Is simply a pressable which is similar to button. It has on press. If user clicks, the handle add expense will be called. Then we have added some class name. We have given the border radius, overflow hidden, and if it is active, then we are giving the opacity to 80, and we are given some margin top. And we are using this linear gradient which we have installed earlier. So here we have this linear gradient coming from Expo linear gradient, and we are defined the colors. Like first we have some light color follows by the dark color. So this is the two color, given the start and end position, and some style. This is a simple CSS. Display flex, align item center, justify center, and height to 50. So we have the height of 50. If you want, you can increase the height as well. Let's say if you want 60 or 80 as per your choice, but I will make it as 50. And simply we have this text saying add expense. So now we are done with our creating the UI. The next thing we have to do is, if I click the add expense, this should add the expense in my DB. So to do this, already we have the store function. If you go to use expense store, just we need to call this fetch expense. Sorry, my bad, not fetch expense. We need to call this add expense, and we need to provide all of this input. So for input, already we have created all the input. We'll pass all this input when we will call this add expense. Let's go back to add. Inside this method, let's say if I click the add expense button, but I have not entered any of the details. So we are not going to store the empty details for the expense. We'll add one condition. If title is not present, title is not present, or the category is not selected, or amount is not defined, or date is not present, then we can use this alert from React Native .alert to alert the user. We'll give the title as error, and in description we'll say please fill all the required fields, and we'll return. So see, if I click add expense, you can see we are getting this alert, error, please fill all the required fields. Then I will say await add expense. So we have not imported this, so I will say use expense store, and let's use or destructure this add expense, and here we need to pass all the input. So we need to pass title, category, so the category will be selected category. Then we need to pass amount, then expense date, which is this date. Yeah, and you can see we are getting this type error. So we'll typecast this as high expense category, which is coming from our store. And if the add expense is successfully added, we'll say alert success, and in the description let's give this message, expense added successfully. And after adding the expense, we can also give the user option to add another or cancel. So to give the options in the alert, we'll take this array, and each array will have this text. So I will say add another, the style will be cancel, and on press, if user presses this add another, this have the arrow function, and I will say router dot push to add. So let's import this router. I will remove this, and here I will say router use router from Expo router. Yeah. So if user clicks add another, we'll push the user to the add page, means the current page, and we'll give one more option, text view all. Suppose after adding the expense, user wants to view all the expense. So what we will do, we will push the user or redirect the user to the expense screen. And after adding the expense, we want to clear the input. So what I mean by that, let's add one expense. So I will say $20. Let's add title as text expense. Let's say transport, and I will set the date. Let's say the date is 10 and the month is December 2026, and I will click add expense. Yeah, it says success, expense added successfully, and now I have these two options, add another or view all, which is coming from this one. Also, if you notice something, if I add the expense, it takes some amount of time, let's say in 100 milliseconds or 50 milliseconds. So we need to handle this as well, because user will confuse what is happening here. So to solve this, we'll have the loading state. So we'll create this loading state. First, let's check our DB. So here I will refresh, and you can see currently we don't have any title name test. So I will refresh here, and you can see one row is added, and here we have the text expense, category is transport, amount $20, date, and the created at. So yeah, we are adding the expense in our Neon DB, and now I can see all the expense or add another. If I say view all, it redirects me to this expense page. If I have clicked this add, it will stay at the add screen. After we have added the expense, we need to clear all this state. User will not add the same expense again. So after we have given the alert that expense added successfully, we'll call handle reset, which will reset all the state. So let's define this method here, handle reset. We'll set the amount to empty string again, just like previous state. Set title to empty string, set selected category to empty string, and set date to empty string. And now I will create the loading state. Loading, set loading, use state, and initially the loading state will be false. And let's set the loading to false here as well. And we'll set the loading here. I will say set loading to true before calling the API, and after we got the success, we'll say set loading to false. So this is the duplicate. Already we are setting the set loading to false in the handle reset. So let's remove this line. It is handled here. So we'll handle all the state in this handle reset. Now what will happen if the loading is true? So here, if the loading is true, after this pressable, I will say if the loading is true, we'll use this modal from React Native, and else if loading is not true, then we'll return null. And inside this modal, let's give some state first. So this modal is only will be visible when the loading is true. If it is false, this modal will not be visible, and this will be a transparent. Then inside this model, I will take one view, and inside this view we are going to show the activity indicator, which is coming from React Native. So this is the indicator we can show to the user. If it is loading, means if the application is the loading state and trying to add the expense, and we'll give the color as white. Let's give some class to this view as well. So I will say flex1, justify center, items center, background color black, divide by 50. Now let's test this. I will say $50, test 2. I will select bills. So the icon is selected. and let's give the date as 5/3/2026. Sorry, 2026. And as soon as I click add expense, we'll see the loading state here. Check it out. If I click add expense, here we have the loading state, and then we have this success alert. If I say add another, we'll say on this screen, and all the state is also cleared. Now let's check the DB if we got this expense. Yeah, we added the new row, test 2 bills, amount is $50, and so on. So this is working as expected. We have created the ad screen just like this one, which is matching to the exact design. Now what I will do, let's test this in the light mode as well. Yeah, it is looking good. I can add the amount, I can add the title, entertainment, I can add the date. Yeah, it is looking good in light mode as well. So we have successfully created our ad screen. Now before ending this lecture, let's push all of the code to GitHub. Let's use AI to write the beautiful commit message, and we'll push all the code to our repo. Yeah, all the code pushed to our repo, and I will meet you in the next lecture. In this lecture, we are going to create our expense screen. So let's check the design for our expense screen. If you check out the expense screen, first we'll have this top category card. This card will show the top category of our expense. So here the bills is the top category, and it contributes 43.48% of our expense, and we will also show the amount. So this is a nice user experience to let the user know where their spendings are the most. Then we'll have the category. We'll show all the category: bills, transport, food, entertainment, groceries. Along with this, we will show the amount and the percent of amount contributing to the expense. After this, if you scroll, then we are going to show this all transaction card with the transaction detail and edit and delete button. If user clicks the edit button, then what we will do, we will transfer this data here in the ad screen, and then user can update the expense from here. So first let's start by building this top category card. Let's go back to VS Code, and here already we have the expense screen. In the tabs, I will give the class as flex1. In dark, we'll give the cinder background color, and in light mode, let's give BG Magnolia. Let's refresh the simulator. And if I go to expense, we have this Magnolia background color. I will switch to dark mode, dark appearance on. And here we have this cinder background color. Then I will give some class to this view as well. So before applying some class to the view, let's take the scroll view, wrap this view inside the scroll view, and I will add some class here. So as always, we are going to give this content container style, and the padding is 16 pixel. Then I will give some border radius to this view, background color to Melrose divide by 70. So this divide by 70 adds some opacity. Then in dark, I will give this color shark 2. Then I will give some padding in the x-axis and y-axis. I will say text white, some padding px3, background to royal blue, text base, font medium, rounded full, and padding y to 1. And it is taking the full width. So what we can do, we can wrap this text inside a view. Then I will add the class to the view as self start. Yeah, now it is not taking the full width. After this top category, we need to show these 3 text: top category text, this label, and the amount. So I will copy the code for this 3 text, and then I will explain this. After this view, we'll have this code, and let's import this get top category, and we also need the user expense. So we'll get this from store use expense store. So here we have the top category bills, then the label and amount. So this is straightforward. We have one text. In dark we are giving the text white color. In light we are setting the text black, text size to 3XL, font semi bold and margin top to 1. Then we are using this utility method get top category. So if we go here, so this is the helper function which returns the top category. So this is how it works. First it gets the category data using category wise data. So if I go to this method takes the data and it loops through the data and it checks. As previously we have created the map. So this is the map which have the key of string and item will be expense item. So if you check it out, this is the expense item. Then what we are doing, we are checking if this category exists in category data, then we push the category item to the category, else we initialize the category with the empty array. After this we return the chart data using object.entry. So all the entries, and will map through the category and each will return have array. First the category value and the expenses. So we need to calculate the total value. So here we are using the reduce. For each expense we are reducing the sum and item, and we are getting the total for each category. So we return the label and value. Then we got the category data. So in category data we have array of objects. Each object have the label, and in the label the category value. In the label we have the category text and amount for that category. Then we initialize the top category object here, as we need to show the label. Here we need to show the label, amount and the percentage. So we have created this object and the total sum. So we loop through the category data, and first we get the total sum of the category value. We are showing the total sum here of all the category value, and we check if the category value is greater than our top category dot amount. We initialize the amount to that category value and initialize the label to that category label. So if in the future another category comes and the amount is greater than our saved amount, then again we replaces the amount with that value and the label. Then simply for percentage, here we are using the percentage formula, top category dot amount divided by total sum into 100. So using this formula you can get the percentage, and then we are returning this top category. So I hope you have understood this get top category helper function. Now let's go back to expense screen, and we are just using the get top category, passing the user expense, showing the label here first. Then here we have the text contributes to. After this we show the percentage with the 2 decimal points of your total outflow. And finally we have this text which shows the amount, the total amount with 2 decimal places. And this is the simple CSS, or you can call it Nativewind, which have the text size, text color and margin top and font bold. So we have created our top category card. After this we have to create the category card. We'll go back to VS Code. After this view I will call one render function. Render, let's call it category wise spending. Let's create this function, render category wise spending, and this will return, for now let's return one text saying render category wise spending. So here in the black we have this category wise spending. First I will remove this and I will take one view, and again I will take one text. In this text I will say category. Let's give the text, did I say text, not text, class name. So let's give the class name as rounded XL, background white, in dark we'll give background shark, px padding is 6, px is 6, means left right, and in top bottom we'll give 6, gap 6, and margin top to 8. So by mistaken we have given all this class to this text, but we have to give all these classes to this view. So let's create the class name here, and for this text we will just give the text color as gray suit, text gray suit. In light mode we'll give this color, text size to XL, and font to bold. So here we have this category text which is looking good. So after this category text, what we have to show? So let's discuss. So we have to show the category wise data. If you check, we are showing the category label, the progress bar, and the amount, which is very much similar to this one. What I will do, I will go to these helpers and I will use this method, get category wise data. So already I have explained this get category wise data. So we are going to reuse this method here. So after this text, I will say category wise data. So let's use the category wise data here. Category wise data equals to get category wise data and pass this user expense. Then category wise data dot map will get the item here and index. Yeah. Then I will say return one view, and let's give the key as index. And I'm going to give class name, I'm going to give the gap, class name gap of 2. And in this view, first we have to show the category name. So I will take one text and I will say item.label. So here we have all of this label. Let's give some class. Text size will be base, font weight semi-bold, and in dark I will give the text color to white and I will give the width to 46. Yeah, here we have this text, and I will wrap this text inside a view because we are going to take the percentage and the amount as well. So I will make this view as flex row, justify between, and items to center. So after this text I will create one more text, and here we will show the value and we will show the percentage. So we need to show the percentage as well. So for percentage, here I will create one percentage equals to, so to calculate the percentage we need the item dot value divide by total into 100. So let's declare this total here, const total equals to category wise data dot reduce, not reverse, it is reduce, and we will calculate the sum for each item. So I will return sum plus item dot value, and the initial value will be 0. Now the percentage dot to fixed, and I will show the 0% with the percentage symbol. Yeah, here we have this percentage and the amount. It is not visible. Let's give some class. Text base, font semi bold. In dark I will give the color as Melrose. Text gunpowder in light mode. Yeah, now it is visible clearly. After this we need to show the percentage. So to show the percentage we are going to create the progress bar. We are not going to use any library for the progress bar. We are going to create the progress we are going to create the custom progress bar using this view. Inside this view, first let's give some class to this view. Width will be full, the progress height will be 4.5, background color gray 200, and in dark let's give background color gray 700, rounded full, and overflow to hidden. Yeah, Inside this view, again I will take one more view. So this will be a self-closing view because we are not going to insert any content here, just we need to use this style. So we'll give the width as, let's use this string, and I will say $% which we have declared above, and I will use the percentage sign, and I will give some class. So height will be full, background color will be royal blue, and rounded to full. Now check it out. We will remove this here, not remove, I will move this here, and here you can see we have this nice looking progress bar. So for bills we have spent $2,549, which is the 39% of all the expense. Similarly for transport, food, entertainment and groceries. If you want, you can support more categories as well. So we have created our category card. Now we will create this all transaction card. So here we have created this render category wise spending. We have created this render method so that all of the code will not come here. Now below this we can easily create our all transaction card. Here I will take one view. Inside this view I will take one text and call it transaction. Then I will give some class to this view, rounded XL. Then background color will be white, in dark the background color will be shark, x-axis padding, y-axis padding, some gap and margin top to 8. Then let's give some class to this text as well. If you see our card all transaction, let's give some class here as well. Dark, in dark we'll give the text color gray suit, light mode color will be shark, text XL and font bold. Here we have the all transaction card with the title. Then what we need to do? We need to create a transaction card for every expense. So after this text, I will take one view and just I will give some gap between each card, and here I will iterate through the user expense using map. Here we will get the expense, and for now let's return a text with the expense title, and let's give color as text white. We need to give the key as well. Key will be expense dot id. So you can see these are all the expenses which we have added. The lunch at cafe is not visible. We will fix this by giving padding bottom. So instead of this title, we need to create this card. So if you check the design, we need to create this card. So let's create this card. So what I will do, in the components folder, I will create one component, and let's call the component. So instead of directly creating the components, what I will do, I will create a new folder and let's call it expense screen. So all the components related to expense screen will go here, and inside this expense screen I will create one component. Let's call it transaction card.tsx. Use the shortcuts, transaction card, and I will call the transaction card here. I will remove this and call transaction card from expense screen. And first let's give the key, and then I will pass the expense. And if you check it out, here we have this edit and delete button. So if user clicks the edit button, we need to navigate the user to this screen, and from here user can update the clicked expense and the delete as well. So for this, what I will do, I will say handle update, and I will call handle update method here, and let's copy this for handling the delete part. Handle delete. Let's quickly create this method. Above this I will say handle update, and let's copy this handle delete. Yeah. Now let's go to this transaction card. So here we are getting this error because we don't accept any props. Let's destructure the expense, handle delete or update, and handle delete as well. Then let's define the type as well. So the expense type will be expense item from the store, and the handle update is a method which returns void, means nothing, but it takes the parameter as value of type expense item. So why this expense item? Because we need to update the expense. And similarly we'll have the delete as a method which will take if you guess what it will take. Yeah, it will take the ID to delete the expense. Now let's refresh the app. Yeah, now let's go to expense screen, and here instead of hard-coded transaction card, let's create this component. First I will give some class to this view, flex row, justify between, items start, overflow, in x-axis will be scroll. Here I will remove this text. I will take one more view, and inside this view I will take one more view for the image, and let's use the image from React Native, and let's give the source. So the source will be URI, and already we have this map category to icon, and we need to pass the expense dot category. So if you check it out, the image is not visible because we have not given the width and height. So similarly we will give the width 20 and height to 20. Yeah, here we have this image, or you can call it as icon. Then let's give some class to this view, flex row, items in start, and some gap which is 1 rem. Then I'm going to give some background color to this view. In dark I will give the shark 3 background color, and in light we'll give the same background color but with divide by 10, padding and rounded LG. So for each image we have this nice looking background color. After this we have to show the title and category. After this image view I will create one more view, and first I will give some gap, class name gap of just 0.5 which is 2 pixel, and here we will show the title. I will copy the code for title. So here we will show the title. Let's import the text from React Native, and here we have the title. Then we are showing the date. So for date we have this expense date where we are converting this to local string, passing the format, and the month is short. So for September it will be like SCP, for June it will be JUN, and then we are showing the category. So for each category, so after the the month we have the category. Here we are showing the category, and just we have given the similar color, text color to the category and to the title. Then we have this amount which have font size base, semi bold, font weight, and in dark we are giving this color to show the amount. So expense dot amount. Now after this view I will create one more view for our buttons. So I will give the class name as items, and we are going to use pressable for each button. I will take one view for pressable, and I will call the pressable. This pressable is responsible for editing the item, and I will take one more pressable, and here I will take the delete. Now if user clicks on this pressable, sorry, not on click, my bad, is on press. So on press we will call the handle update and will pass the expense, and similarly for delete we will call handle delete and we will pass the ID. Now just we have to do the design stuff. So for that I will copy the code. So here we have the code for update and delete. So it is not looking good, like the button have no space. I will give some class to this view, flex row and some gap. Yeah, now check it out, it is looking good. Edit and delete. So just I have given some text color in dark and light mode, text size and font weight, and similarly here the text color is red. In dark mode we are giving black, text size to SM and font weight to medium. And for pressable we are adding some padding, border radius and background color, and if it is active we are giving some opacity. Now we have created our design for our all transaction and we are showing all the details for each transaction. The next thing we have to do is we have to handle the edit and delete. So let's first handle the delete. So what will happen on delete? It will call this handle delete, which is coming from this props. Here handle delete. Here we will receive the ID. As if user clicks on this handle delete, we are passing the ID. So we will receive the ID here. And simply what we have to do, if you remember, already we have this delete expense. So let's let's use this delete expense, and just we need to pass the ID, and we need to make this function as async. And suppose if user deletes this expense or this transaction, after this it is not good to show the deleted transaction. We need to refresh this card. So for this what I can do, I will call the fetch expense. Let's use it fetch expenses, and I will call fetch expense if user clicks the delete. So check it out, if I click delete, you can see after some milliseconds the test2 expense got deleted successfully and the transaction is no longer here. It means it is also deleted from our database as well. So let's check it out. In the Neon database we have this test2, and if I refresh the table here, you can see the test2 is gone. We have deleted the test2 from our expense transaction table. Awesome. Then we need to handle the update. Now let's think how we can handle the update. So what I want is, if I click the edit button, I want to open this add screen, and it should pre-fill all of the data, and instead of add expense it should show me update expense. And if I click update expense, and again if I go here, this expense or the clicked one expense should be updated. So let's think how we can achieve this. To implement this, what we can do, we can use the router. So now what is this router? So if you remember, we are using the router to redirect the user. So again I can use the router from use router, Expo router, and what we can do, we can use this router to push some data. If user clicks the edit, we will get the expense which needs to be updated. Let's define the type as well, expense item, and first let's destructure the expense value. Here we will receive the ID, title, amount, category and date. So then what we can do, we will say router.push, and we can pass the path name as add. So what does router provides? It provides the path name. If user clicks on this, we will redirect the user to the add screen with all the params. So if you know, in router we can pass the params. So I will say params, and it will be an object, and let's pass all of these things: amount, category, expense, date. Now using the use local search params, we can extract all of this data, and we can use this data to update the expense. So if you check it out, let's say if I click edit to this expense, it redirects me to this screen. You can see it redirects me to this screen, but currently we don't have any pre-filled data, so we have to handle this. So let's go to add screen, and here in the add screen at the top, I will say const, let's call it temp for now, use local search params from the Expo router, and check it out. If I print the temp, let's open the console. So you can see in the temp already we have the amount, category, expense, date, ID and title for this transaction which needs to be updated. So we can use all of this data to call our update API. So what I will do, instead of this temp, I will destructure ID and let's call this ID as params ID, title to params title, amount params amount, and the category and the expense date. For category and expense date, I will leave as it is. And as we are building this project in TypeScript, I will define the type as well. So this is a object, ID of type string, title of type string, and we have the amount of type string, then we have the category of type I expense category, and then finally we have the expense date of type string. Yeah, then I will use the store, use expense store. So already we have using the store here, so I will move it here and I will use the update expense as well. Now let's see how we can use the update expense. First, just like handle add expense, I will create handle update expense, which will be a async method just like add, and I will say set loading to true similar to add expense, and I will call update expense. Let's pass the params ID. The update expense requires the params ID, not params ID but just the ID of the expense, and we need to pass all the data like title, category, amount and the expense date, which will be a date. Now the next important thing we have to do is, now what we will do here, I will say params amount. So if the amount params amount is present, use the params amount instead of IMT string. Now you know why I have written the name like this, params amount, because the amount and this amount will be same. That's why I've written this params amount. Then we have the params title, then we have the category. So category is not the same state variable, that's why I have not renamed it. And then we have the expense date. Here we are getting this set selected category error. So let's define the type as I expense category, or this will be a string as well. Yeah, the error is gone. Then if user clicks the edit button, we'll receive all of these params and we will put all of these params here. But if you check it out, let's say if I click edit, nothing pre-fills here, because this use local search params will take some amount of time and until our code will move. It means JavaScript will not stay here until your data is available. It will move. So what I will do, I will take one use effect here and we will set all the state here. So I will say set title to params title, set amount to params amount, and what else we have, amount, title, category and date, and set category to category, set date to expense date, and let's update the dependency array. Yeah, and as soon as I save the file, here is the result. We have the pre-filled data. We have this text, expense, title, amount, selected category, date. Now we need to change this button title as well. So first let's change this button title. To change the button title, what I can do, I will first wrap this inside a string. I will take this curly braces and I will check if params ID is available. It means user came from the update screen or the expense screen. So I will say update expense, else add expense, and you can see here we have this update expense, but if I go to here it says add expense, but if I click edit it says update expense. Yeah, working good. Now if I click update, still the add expense method will be called. Instead of this we need to call the update expense. Again it is going to be straightforward. Just like we handle the text, we'll check if the params ID is available, it means user came from the expense screen. So simply I will call handle update and return. Now I will go to this handle update expense. So it will set the loading, update the expense, then we need to show the alert. So what I will do, I will copy this code and put it here. So after updating the expense, we will say expense updated successfully, and all the remaining code will remain same, and then we will call handle reset. Now let's try to update this text expense. So if you check in the DB, we have this text expense. So I will name it as 2 and let's give $200, change the category and change the date as well. I will say update expense. So we have the loading state and you can see we got this alert success, expense updated successfully. We can add another or view all. I will click add another. Now let's check the database. Here we have the text expense, and if I refresh the table, this row got updated. Now we have the text expense too, which is true. So we have the updated title, updated category, amount and date. So this is working as expected. So finally we have created our expense screen with all the cards like top category, category and all the transaction with edit and delete feature. Awesome. So if you check the design, here we have the all transaction card, and here if you check we have this all transaction card which is similar, very much similar, and then we have the top category card and the category card. Let's verify this with light mode as well, how it is looking in light mode. So I will off this and let's check it out in light mode. Yeah, I think it is looking good in light mode as well. We have this category, then we have this category card and the all transaction table. And if I click edit and let's edit this, so I will remove this subscription and let's update. Yeah, it got updated, and if I click add another, it will stay here, and if I click view all, it redirects me to the expense screen. So this is it for this lecture. Before ending this lecture, let's push all the code which we have written here. Click this plus button. Let's use AI to write nice commit message. Here we have the commit message, and just commit and sync the changes. We have pushed our code to the GitHub repo as well. Now in the next lecture, we will create the profile screen. I will meet you in the next lecture. To create the profile screen, we don't have any design because we are going to use the Clerk profile. So this is going to be the easiest. Let's go to the profile screen, and here just we have to use the user profile from Clerk. So what I will do, I will remove all of this and I will take one view which will be a self-closing view, and let's add the class as flex1, background color to cinder, but in dark mode. We want this color in dark mode, else the background color will be magnolia. If we check it out, here we have the background color. Now to present the user profile, we will use one hook from React Native. Use focus event, sorry, not from React Native but from Expo router. And what this hook will do, first let's import user profile modal. So I will say use user profile modal from Clerk Expo, and this will return us present user profile. I will write this hook again, use focus event, and inside this hook I will use the use callback, and we need to present this user profile, and this returns the promise. If user closes this profile, Just I will say router. Let's import it, router, use router from Expo router dot back. So I will explain why I am doing this. And here we need to add the dependency array as present user profile. Let's update the dependency array. Yeah. So now check it out. As soon as I click on the profile, you can see the clerk is opening this modal. Here you can see your profile picture, name. If you click the profile, you will have the details about your email address. You can remove the email address from here as well or connect an account. Then from the security tab, you can delete your account. And the important part is you can sign out from here as well. And if you want, you can also update your profile. So this is it for our profile section. So finally, we have created our Spendwise app in React Native, which is supported both dark mode and light mode. So I hope you enjoyed this course building this awesome project. That's it for this course. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a lot by building this app. And if you want to go further, don't forget to check out the full course on Udemy. Link is in the description below. If you found this video helpful, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video.